Hey folks, sorry for the delay in getting this one out. Just got busy with things. Life overtakes us. And this is the third or fourth in the video series of how to make a Christmas ornament by using Vectric as the design software. And you can see that previous video. This is in the playlist, and you can see that previous video by checking out the card up in the corner that I'm going to put, and I'll put a link down. I'll put a link down below here, and you will be able to see that video plus the next two videos. The next one was how to cut the ornament on the CNC, and following that I showed you how to take the design in the laser and cut it in the laser. And in this video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you how I go ahead and turn that into an ornament using Fusion 360. So let me go over to Fusion 360 at this time. Off and on, you will probably hear me struggle with talking because I've been suffering with a cold for a couple weeks. That's kind of why some of this video was put off a while. So I'm in Fusion 360, and this is what I use when I'm making a 3D printed objects. You can see a whole file over here on the side. If you look over here, you see all these different things that I've made. I've got the gingerbread ornament that I made before. I've got earrings. I've got physical functional equipment. So this is my go-to for making 3D printed objects. The way I start out a 3D printed object that I want to do like an ornament or an earring is I usually start out in Vectric, and I design the object and I export either an SVG or a DXF file, as you will see in that other video. In this case, I exported an SVG file and a DXF, and I use the SVG for the lasers and I use the DXF for 3D prints. And let me show you the difference. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the Fusion 360 tutorial portion. You can use Fusion 360, Tinkercad, or any other program in which you can create an STL file. My go-to is Fusion 360. I originally started out by saving the file, so if anything happens, I can always get back to it. The first thing you do in Fusion 360 for creating any kind of component or body or anything is to create a sketch. So I'm going to go and start by doing that. I'm creating a sketch. I'm going to create it on the top profile, and I'm going to initially create a circle by either coming up here and hit create circle. I can just hit C, and I'm going to put it in the center origin, and I'm going to make this circle 75.5 millimeters. And I'm doing that because I want to show you the difference between inserting an SVG and inserting a DXF in Fusion 360. So now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and insert an SVG. And I enter the gingerbread that we saved from the Vectric file earlier. And now you can see that that SVG didn't come in at the full size. I know that this circle represents the inner section of that ornament from what I set up in the vCarve file. So knowing that, I know that what I've got to do for this ornament is make sure that this inner circle matches that diameter. And so I'm pulling it from that area right there to make a nice even pull. And now I have to fiddle around with that to try to get it just the right size. And of course we're working in millimeters, so those are fractions of millimeters you see me messing with, which is not that critical, but it does make a difference, especially if you're going to try to use what I do. Is I have a 3D ornament assembly tool, jig, that I put together. So for this purpose, I'm going to leave it at that because it's close enough. If I was going to actually make this ornament using this, I would adjust it so these lines were right over the top of each other a little bit more. So that's what happens if you import an SVG. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this SVG and show you what I like better about it, DXF. So I'm going to hit cancel, and now I'm going to insert a DXF file instead of an SVG. So I go get the DXF. Here's my DXF file. It takes a little longer to come in because it has a lot more nodes associated with it. But what you can see just right off the bat is it comes in right at the right size of how I made the ornament. You see I just barely moved it a little bit, and now I'm right over the circle. And so everything is at the right size, so many times I won't even put in that circle because now I know that a DXF file is going to come in at the right size. So since it came in at the right size, I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. And that works out perfect. Now, one of the things I'm going to do so I don't end up getting any double circles or anything is I'm going to take that circle that I did, which you can see is slightly above. So this DXF that I brought in, you can see the circle, it's the DXF I made a little lower. So it's the right size, but I didn't get it lined up perfectly on the circle. And I don't want double lines, so I'm going to go ahead and delete the circle because I don't need that. And now I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. And now that I've finished the sketch, I can start to work with this thing inside of Fusion 360. I like to turn it a little bit at an angle. So the first thing I'm going to do is extrude all of the parts of this ornament that is not going to be see-through. And when I'm extruding, I make sure I move my cursor so the whole area gets selected and not just the line. See how I just accidentally selected the line only? So I'm going to come back over here and we'll select that. And so we have everything. I'm going to hit E for extrude, and I'm going to go minus, and you'll see why I do this later. I'm going to go minus 3 millimeters, which means that's how thick this ornament's going to be at this point. And instead of new body, I'm going to actually put new component. And that becomes important, that it's a separate component from the rest of the decorations. Hit OK. And now I'm going to go ahead and rename that while I'm thinking about it. And I'll just say body. And I have to turn the sketch back on because in Fusion 360, after you make your first body, the sketch disappears. And that's important. So the next thing I want to do is I want to make the eyes and the mouth and all of the rest of it a different decoration. So this I'm going to have like a gingerbread color, and then the rest I'm going to have white. So let's go ahead and click in that one, and then I'm going to hold shift. I'm clicking that, and so once again I'm going through like I did before and holding the shift key and making sure the whole area color. So sometimes I have to blow it up a little bit to get it to work easier. And now you can see that I have all of those areas selected, and I'm going to hit the E key for extrude. I'm going to go just like I did before, and I'm going to go minus in this case. If I went positive, let's say my layer heights are going to be around 0.2 millimeters, give or take. I might change it when I get into Bambu Studio. So I want at least 3 layers to give me a nice good coloring. But I'm going to go, let's say 4 layers. So I'm going to make this 0.8 millimeters, which gives me 4 layers of printing. And if I go in the positive direction, what you can see is that will be sticking out. And that might work pretty good. That might be what you want to do. I actually like the texture of keeping my print, everything flat on the bed. I like the way it turns out. And so I'm going to do something different. I'm going to go ahead and rotate this again so you can see it. And instead of 0.8, I'm going to make it minus 0.8. Now the next important part, this is important if you want to be able to use this technique for printing your ornament and getting the textured print on the outside of the ornament, is to take this and move it from cut to new component. If I put cut, you see it's going to go in, but I want it as new component. And now that I've got it as a new component, I'm going to hit OK. And so for that new component, I'm going to rename that white. Okay. So this one here, instead of body, I want to rename that outside. And as you can see, this outside component has one body in it, and this white component has a whole bunch of components. I'm going to go back up here because there's so many of them here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to the outside body, and I'm going to rename this one here brown body. And you'll see why I do that later. So now that I have these set up, I'm going to come over and I'm going to change the appearance so I kind of get a good look at what this is going to look like. So I hit the A key for appearance, open that up, and I'm going to pick, for the outside body, let's pick this yellowish color. It really doesn't matter. I'm just trying to show the contrast. So I take yellow and I move it over outside. Remember, that's what I renamed it. Then if I do the same thing for white and I come over this white body, it's going to take all the white bodies underneath it and put them white, and now you can see that you can see the difference in colors in this ornament. And so now what I want to do is I want to take this ornament and I want to export it, and I found that most of the time the way I'm going to show you works. Other times you might have to try something different. I'm going to use the one that works most of the time for me at this time. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the gingerbread ornament component, not anything else down here, the component. Then I'm going to come up here and I'm going to say 3D print. And I've got my Fusion 360 already tied to my Bambu Studio application. What I want to do is come back over here, select the component again, because I noticed this was grayed out. It wasn't blue. And so I want to see what it looks like before I send it over to the printer. And you can see it has the whole component. If I didn't do that correctly, then it might only take one part of the component. And so since I do, the next step is just to hit OK, and it's going to import into my Bambu Studio. There you see my Bambu Studio opening up. And when it opens up, you see I get this initial message. This is a multi-part object, so it means there's several different parts on it. And it says this contains positions at multiple heights, and of course it does, because remember the white is on top and the brown is below. So we want to go ahead and load it all as a single object with multiple parts. Now the reason I want to load it as a multiple object with multiple parts is because I want to change the colors of some of the parts. So I hit yes. Now that I did that, it's important that I don't just grab one section or another, because it'll separate out until I get finished here. So if I go to Objects, I want to make sure I'm selecting the whole thing. I went to Objects, go to Plate 1, go to Gingerbread, I should say, and you can see what I have here is I have a whole bunch of objects. And all of my one objects are my design, and that should be white. And I will change my filaments around later so that we do it. To make it happen fast, there's two ways I can do this. One is I could put white filament in my number 1 AMS slot, or the other one is I could change all of these to my AMS slot right now that says white is number 2. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I click on that and I type in 2. Think back to the Fusion. Remember, instead of just leaving this as body, I named this as brown body, so I would know right away I had the right one. If I wanted to take the time and change all of these to white body, I could have done that. So now that I have all the components in the right spot, I'm going back to Global, and my standard print profile for running my ornaments is this one right here, so I'm going to leave it. I have one more thing I need to do. Now, if I want this to look like this, I can go ahead and let's make this a little bigger. I'm not quite sure how it's going to show up on the screen. I can go ahead and leave it just like this, and it will print all of the brown or a molten PLA marble, and then it will print the white. But if I want it to have a nice texture, let me show you drag that over here. If I want it to look like this, because I've already printed it, then you see how you have this nice texture right here. That matches up my build plate, my PEI textured plate, and so does the white, to have this down when I'm printing. And so I'll print all of this first, and then it will build itself up from there. Hopefully that makes sense. So let me move this out a second. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and take and grab that whole ornament, and I'm going to rotate that 180 degrees. And now I have that on the bottom, and that's the first part that will print, and I will get that nice texture that I was showing in my final print. So now that I have all of that set up, I have the profile. I'll go ahead and slice the plate, and this tells you that this is going to take about 20 minutes to print the way I've set it up, and it will use about 11.42 grams of total filament, and costs about 34 cents based on the filament costs I have in there. So then I go to the print queue, send it to the printer, and it's got all of the functions that we need. We've got the brown there, and then we've got the white. Go ahead and hit send. Okay, folks, that's it. That's the end of what I do to make a 3D printed ornament, or several 3D printed objects like earrings and bookmarks and various things. And I'll show some videos more in the future on different projects if you're interested. If you are interested in hearing more about my 3D printing adventures, please give me a comment so that I know to go ahead and take time to produce those videos. If you're interested in seeing other types of videos that I make and being informed when I put out a video, then you know what to do. Please subscribe to the channel. Likes and comments always help. And let me know in the comments or through emails or other methods what you would like to see. I hope this was helpful, and we'll catch you in the future. Go out in the shop or in your 3D printing area and make some cool stuff. Until then, have a good day.